The sky was gloomy, the city of New York cloaked in a blanket of gray clouds. A light rain fell, dusting the streets with a fine mist, and creating a soft, muted soundscape as tires rolled through puddles and the wind whispered through the towering buildings. Fallen leaves danced along the sidewalks, carried by the chill gusts that seemed to embody a sense of loneliness. Richard, a man in his 70s, walked slowly along a familiar street, his footsteps barely disturbing the damp pavement. Years ago, this was where he and his first wife, Mary, would stroll hand in hand on breezy afternoons, the setting sun painting the buildings gold as they reveled in their simple happiness. These memories, thought to be faded by time, now rushed back with every step he took, every raindrop that kissed his thin shoulders. They brought Mary back to life, her gentle smile, their little daughter's sweet laughter, like an old film reel forever imprinted on his heart. Richard was a successful millionaire, with vast wealth, luxurious villas, and a seemingly perfect family. Yet, behind the opulent walls and lavish parties, he carried a deep sadness, the loss of his first wife and their young daughter. It was an unhealed wound, a void that no amount of money could fill. Mary had perished in a tragic car accident 23 years ago, and on that same fateful day, their 2-year-old daughter vanished without a trace. He had hired countless detectives, searched everywhere, placed countless ads, but all in vain. The years stretched on, and hope seemed to dwindle with each passing day. Yet, even as time marched forward, his hair turned silver, and his legs grew weary. Richard never gave up. He still quietly walked these familiar streets, his eyes searching, as if in some magical moment he might catch a glimpse of his daughter, the little girl with innocent, round eyes and an angelic smile. He knew it was likely impossible, but deep in his heart, he couldn't stop hoping, couldn't stop dreaming of a day they would be reunited, even if just one last time. Suddenly, his footsteps faltered. Amidst the throng of hurried people, he spotted a small figure huddled against a damp brick wall, trying to shield herself from the biting wind. It was a young woman with sunken cheeks and a pale, weary face, her eyes deep set and brimming with profound sadness. In her arms, a newborn baby was swaddled in a thin blanket, its face flushed red from the cold, its lips touched by a soft pink tongue. The baby cried desperately from hunger, its weak cries tearing at the hearts of those who heard it. Richard's heart clenched. He had never seen such a pitiful sight. The image of the young mother clutching her infant child, helpless against the harshness of life, reminded him of Mary and his own little girl. A feeling of deep sorrow and compassion surged within him. He couldn't ignore the suffering of the mother and child. Without hesitation, Richard approached the woman. He gently took off his warm coat and draped it over her shoulders. Then he pulled out his wallet, took out all the cash he had, $350, and handed it to the girl. "Please, take this money to buy some food and milk for your child. It's so cold, you both need to eat properly." Richard's voice was warm and full of concern. The woman looked up at him, her deep brown eyes shimmering with tears. She nodded slightly, her lips trembling as she uttered her thanks. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Her voice was weak, but her eyes shone with a glimmer of hope. Richard smiled, his rough hand gently stroking the baby's hair. "You're welcome, miss. I hope you and your child will be all right." With that, he turned and walked away, his heart heavy with thoughts. He didn't know where fate would lead the young mother and her child, but he hoped that his small amount of money could help them overcome their immediate difficulties. Little did he know, this chance encounter would mark a turning point in his life, leading him to unexpected truths he could never have imagined. Sophia, a young woman with deep sadness etched in her brown eyes, did not have an idyllic childhood like many other children. She grew up in a small, impoverished village in the southern United States, raised by a kind, elderly farming couple. They had taken Sophia in when she was 2.5 years old, finding her crying and walking alone by the roadside, with nothing but the clothes on her back, a silver necklace engraved with a picture of a happy family, and a handkerchief embroidered with the name Mary. Sophia's childhood was marked by hardship and deprivation. She had to help her adoptive parents with farm work and tending to livestock from a young age. Despite the difficult life, Sophia was always loved and nurtured by her adoptive parents. They taught her to read and write and instilled in her valuable lessons about compassion, honesty, and resilience. However, fate dealt her a cruel blow. When Sophia was 16, a massive storm struck, claiming the lives of her adoptive parents and leaving her orphaned. Sophia had to fend for herself, taking on any job she could find to survive. Then she met David, a young man who shared a similar plight. They fell in love and had a beautiful baby boy together. Just when happiness seemed within reach, tragedy struck again. David died in a work accident, leaving Sophia alone with their infant son. The burden of providing for her child weighed heavily on Sophia's shoulders, but she never gave up hope. She always remembered her adoptive parents' words, urging her to be strong, overcome difficulties, and live a good life to honor their love and care. Before their passing, her adoptive parents had revealed the truth about Sophia's origins. They gave her the necklace and the handkerchief, saying they were the only mementos from her birth parents. Sophia decided to embark on a journey to find her real family. Sophia's quest to find her roots was arduous and challenging. She had to take on various jobs to make ends meet and raise her son from waitressing and dishwashing to cleaning. She wandered far and wide, relying on scant clues to search for her birth parents' whereabouts. Finally, after many long years, Sophia found her way to New York, where her mother, Mary, was laid to rest. Standing before the cold tombstone, Sophia couldn't help but be overwhelmed with emotion. She silently prayed, hoping her mother would guide her to find her father and any remaining relatives. And then fate brought her face to face with Richard, the kind-hearted man who gave her $350 on that rainy day. Sophia had no idea that this fateful encounter would completely change her life. The cemetery was silent, the rows of trees casting long shadows over the moss-covered tombstones. Sophia stood before Mary's grave, the cold stone bearing the name of the mother she had never met. The wind howled, carrying a chill that seeped through every thread of her clothing. She clutched the handkerchief embroidered with Mary and the silver necklace, her heart heavy with indescribable emotions. "Mom," Sophia whispered, her voice choked with tears. "It's Sophia, your daughter. Although I've never met you, I've always felt your love through the keepsakes you left behind. I've been through so much, but I never gave up hope of finding my family. Now I've found you, and I hope you'll guide me to find my father and other loved ones." Tears streamed down Sophia's face, soaking the old handkerchief. She placed a bouquet of pure white lilies on the tombstone, the pristine flowers symbolizing her love for her deceased mother. Just then, Richard appeared. He slowly approached Mary's grave, carrying a bouquet of crimson roses. As usual, every week he came here to visit and talk to his beloved wife, who had passed away too soon. But today he froze when he saw Sophia, not only because he recognized the young woman he had helped the day before, but also because of the necklace in her hand, the silver necklace with the image of a family of 3, which was a wedding anniversary gift from him to Mary. It had disappeared along with her little daughter in the accident years ago. For years, Richard had blamed himself for not being able to protect his wife and child. The pain of loss never subsided. Seeing the necklace, the painful memories flooded back, squeezing Richard's heart. He felt dizzy, his mind spinning. "That necklace," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Where did you get it?" Sophia looked in surprise at the elderly man. With a distraught expression, she sensed the extreme pain in his eyes. "This necklace belonged to my mother," she replied softly. "My adoptive parents told me it was the only memento from my birth parents." Richard couldn't believe his ears. He stared at Sophia, every feature on the young woman's face resembling Mary. His heart pounded, a glimmer of hope flickering in his mind. Could it be? Could this girl be his long-lost daughter? What is your name?" Richard asked, his voice hoarse. "Sophia," the girl replied. "Sophia?" Richard murmured. The name sounded so familiar, as if he had called it countless times before. He looked at Sophia, then back at the necklace, questions swirling in his mind, creating a storm within him. Emotion surged within Richard. The pain of loss he had carried for so many years seemed to vanish, replaced by boundless happiness. He couldn't believe his eyes. The young woman standing before him with that familiar necklace was the little daughter he thought he had lost forever. "Sophia, my daughter." Richard choked back sobs, opening his arms wide to embrace Sophia. Sophia was confused by the sudden hug, but then she felt the warmth, the trembling, and the sincere love from this stranger. A strange sense of belonging rose within her, as if she had returned to where she belonged. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with her father's. Richard hurriedly took Sophia and his granddaughter home. The luxurious, spacious villa was suddenly filled with the laughter of the grandfather and granddaughter. Richard happily introduced Sophia to his family. "This is Sophia, my biological daughter. She has come home." Linda, Richard's second wife, stood frozen. Her face changed color, her eyes revealing anxiety and unease. Peter, Linda's own son, also couldn't hide his displeasure. "What did you say? Biological daughter?" "What's going on?" Linda exclaimed, her tone full of suspicion. "That's right, Linda. Sophia is my daughter with Mary. She was lost many years ago, and now she has found her way back to us," Richard firmly affirmed. "Impossible. Don't tell me you believe her. Who knows if she's a scammer coming here to seize your assets?" Linda vehemently objected, her voice shrill. "Linda, that's enough," Richard sternly shouted. "Sophia is my daughter. That's undeniable. I won't let anyone insult her." "Richard, don't be blind. Are you sure she's not some gold digger scheming her way in because you're rich?" Linda remained stubborn. "Shut up," Richard raged. "I know my daughter. Sophia is a kind, good girl. She doesn't care about money. She just wants to be reunited with her family." Tension filled the room. Sophia remained silent, her head bowed, tears streaming down her cheeks. The baby in her arms also sensed the tension and cried out. Richard looked at his daughter with heartache. He turned to Linda, his voice resolute. "Linda, I demand you respect Sophia. Whether you accept it or not, Sophia is my daughter, a member of this family. I will never abandon her." Faced with Richard's firm stance, Linda and Peter had to accept the truth. They had no choice but to live with Sophia, the daughter who suddenly appeared, turning their lives upside down. However, deep down, Linda still harbored the intention of finding a way to kick Sophia out of the house. Sophia's life in the luxurious villa was not easy. Although Richard treated her and his granddaughter with all his love and care, Linda and Peter constantly expressed their displeasure and hostility. In front of Richard, they tried to appear welcoming and friendly. Linda often complimented Sophia on her beauty and diligence, while Peter kindly inquired about the lives of the mother and daughter. But in Richard's absence, they immediately changed their tune. Linda often ordered Sophia to do heavy chores, from cleaning the house, doing laundry, to cooking and gardening. She always found ways to nitpick and criticize, giving Sophia no peace. Peter acted cold and distant, even making sarcastic remarks and mocking Sophia's poor background. "Don't think that just because my dad took you in, you can live comfortably. You're just a foundling. Don't dream of getting your hands on this family's assets," Peter told Sophia with a contemptuous tone. Sophia endured in silence. She didn't want to argue, nor did she want to upset Richard. She just wanted to live peacefully with her father, making up for the years of emotional deprivation. One evening, Richard had to go on a business trip. Linda and Peter took this opportunity to torment Sophia. They locked her and her son in a pitch-black room, with no lights, no water, and no food. Sophia hugged her son, tears streaming down her face. She felt helpless and humiliated. "Mommy, I'm scared," the boy sobbed. Sophia tried to reassure him. "Don't be afraid, honey. Mommy will protect you. Everything will be all right." But inside Sophia, fear and despair grew. She didn't know how much longer she could endure. She missed her adoptive parents, missed the days of hardship but filled with love. She longed to return to the small village where people truly loved her. Sophia felt like a little bird trapped in a golden cage. She had her father, a home of material comforts, but lacked warmth and genuine affection. She yearned to be free from this suffocating life, to live a life of freedom and happiness. Night fell and the villa was plunged into darkness. Sophia lay hugging her son, tears soaking her pillow. Linda and Peter's harsh words cut into her heart like knives. She felt so alone, lost in this luxurious house. Should I leave? The thought suddenly flashed through Sophia's mind. She wanted to return to the South, where people truly loved her, where she could live a simple life without enduring coldness and contempt. But then the image of Richard appeared in her mind. Richard with his kind smile, affectionate eyes, always giving her words of encouragement and comfort. He had longed to find her for so many years. Now she couldn't abandon him. "Oh, I have to stay. For Dad," Sophia told herself. She would try to endure. She would use love to touch Linda and Peter's hearts, so the family could be reunited and happy. Then one day, Linda suddenly collapsed on the floor, unconscious. Sophia, who was cleaning the house, heard the noise and ran over. Seeing Linda lying motionless, her face turning blue, she cried out in panic, "Peter! Peter! Come quick, something's wrong with Mom!" Sophia shouted for Peter while quickly calling for an ambulance. Peter ran down from upstairs and was also frightened and flustered when he saw his mother sprawled on the floor. Sophia calmly administered first aid to Linda, then, together with Peter, took her to the hospital. The doctors diagnosed Linda with a stroke requiring immediate surgery. They said that if Sophia hadn't discovered her in time and brought Linda to the hospital just a few minutes later, she might not have survived. Richard received the bad news and immediately flew back. He anxiously waited by his wife's bedside, his heart burning with worry. Sophia also didn't leave Linda's side. She took turns with Richard caring for Linda, worrying about every meal and every bit of sleep. Linda gradually woke up. She saw Sophia sitting beside her, her eyes filled with concern, her hand gently wiping the sweat from her forehead. Linda was moved, tears rolling down her cheeks. Sophia, thank you, Linda choked up. If it weren't for you, maybe I would have... Sophia smiled gently. Don't say that, Mom. I just did what I had to do. From then on, Linda completely changed her attitude towards Sophia. She realized that Sophia was a kind and sincere girl, not calculating as she had once thought. She regretted treating Sophia badly, and began to open her heart to accept her. Sophia also felt relieved that Linda had come to understand. She knew that love could conquer all, could heal wounds, and bring happiness to everyone. Peter, witnessing his mother's illness and Sophia's dedicated care, also began to see his half-sister in a different light. He recognized Sophia's sincerity and kindness, and felt ashamed of his previous unkind actions. One afternoon, Peter knocked on Sophia's door. He hesitated, then apologized. Sophia, I'm sorry for what I did to you. I was wrong to misunderstand you. Sophia smiled gently. I don't blame you, Peter. I understand you were worried about Mom. From then on, Peter actively approached and talked to Sophia. He told her about his work, his future plans, and even his secret concerns. Sophia listened, shared, and gave him sincere advice. The two siblings gradually became close, as if there had never been a distance between them. The family atmosphere became warmer than ever. Linda had fully recovered, and she treated Sophia like her own daughter, always caring for her. Richard was happy to see his wife and children loving and getting along with each other. He felt like he had regained everything. The losses and pains of the past seemed to vanish. Sophia also felt complete happiness. She had a father, a mother, a brother, and a home filled with love. Her young son also lived in the warm embrace of his grandfather and the whole family. The boy happily played with Peter, calling Linda and Richard his grandparents, with all his love and respect. Family meals were always filled with laughter. Richard often told his children stories about Mary and Sophia's childhood. Linda enjoyed teaching Sophia how to cook delicious dishes. Peter took advantage of his free time to play with his nephew. On Sophia's birthday, the whole family held a cozy party. Richard gave Sophia a new necklace to replace the old faded one. Linda and Peter gave her meaningful gifts, expressing their sincere affection. Sophia was happy. She felt the love from her family, a real family that she had always longed for. She packed up and left her home for the event, hoping to find Richard. She found him sitting alone in a really busy locale. Police escaped, aid 9. Linda's face gained. Ready, ma'am? Give it to me. Now, Sophia was no longer the lonely lost girl she once was. She had found true happiness, a complete family home where she had loving parents and caring siblings. And all these good things stemmed from that fateful encounter on that rainy day years ago, when Richard gave her $350, along with his kindness. Richard sat thoughtfully by the fireplace, the flickering flames illuminating his face, painting contemplative features. Looking at the scene of his family gathered together, the sound of laughter echoing through the warm house, he felt his heart filled with peace and happiness. He recalled that stormy day years ago when he encountered Sophia, shivering on the street corner. His heart urged him to help the poor young woman. $350, to him, was just a small amount of money, but to Sophia it was probably a fortune. But he never expected that the act of giving in that spontaneous moment would bring him a priceless gift, the love and the complete family he had always longed for. It's truly a miracle, Richard thought to himself. Life is indeed full of surprises, and happiness sometimes comes from the simplest things. He used to think that money could buy everything, but now he realized that family affection is the most precious thing in the world, something that all the money in the world could not compare to. Richard smiled. His eyes lit up with joy and gratitude. He was grateful to fate for bringing Sophia to him, turning the lonely, sad days into the past. Now he had a complete family, a loving daughter, an adorable granddaughter, and Linda, the wife who had been with him through the ups and downs of life. Richard got up and walked over to Sophia, who was playing with her son. He embraced both mother and child, whispering happily, "I love you both so much." Oh. Sophia looked up at her father, her eyes sparkling with joy and gratitude. "I love you too, Dad," she replied, her voice filled with affection. The whole family gathered together, sharing happy stories and warm moments. The house was filled with laughter, light, and love. Richard looked at his loved ones, his heart overflowing with a sense of fulfillment. He knew that from now on, his family would always be his solid support, an endless source of encouragement for him on the road ahead. "We should try this?" Paisley asked. "It's scary, but probably easier to predict than what could happen afterwards."